All right, on this demo, finishing up our logo, we want to get a finished black version and then start adding simple color to it. Logo color should be simple and direct and clear and not vital. So I have these different finished versions of Illustrator files that I've worked to smooth and make what I want. And now I'm going to start putting them together. And this is more complicated than a standard logo. It's more like a spot illustration, which we'll be doing later. But it's all the same techniques. So as these files open up in Illustrator, I have the face with the air mask, the explosion behind, and just a simple text treatment that I put together. There that is. I'm going to open them all. Interesting. And you can work with EPS files like this or AI files when you're working in Illustrator. And they need to be arranged in their own windows, just like in Photoshop. And you can use the same shortcut keys like Command-O to get it to show up large on screen. And then I have this text one as well. It's not quite as easy to just drag and drop different elements. Instead, in Illustrator, you have to copy and paste them. So the element I want to build on top of is actually the explosion. So let me minimize this. You can always hit F9, right? They're all floating in windows, and you can kind of see your different windows. So my explosion here, it's just one vector group on top of a blank background, so there's nothing there. I'm going to build on top of that, and I'm going to first bring in my face. And to do that, I select all that's showing here. I go up to Edit Copy. I can then close this, and I can say Edit Paste in Place. And I can, while it's using the large selection tool and holding down Shift, I can kind of shrink it and place it just like I would a layer in Photoshop. The difference is, unless you create a separate layer, it won't make a new layer when you paste it in like it does in Photoshop, but it will make a separate grouping. And so if I want a new layer, I can always just add a new layer and then move that group into the new layer, like so. And layers are designated by the different colors of the anchor points. Red for layer 2, blue for layer 1. Okay. Whenever I'm working in Illustrator and I'm working on just one group, I like to put it into its own layer, and I like to lock the other layers, because one nagging problem with Illustrator is how easy it is to select the wrong thing accidentally. Okay, I think I want to make her pretty big in there. And you can see there's transparency behind her. So the first thing I need to do is actually create, and this is just like coloring, I'm going to create a white shape behind her that kind of blocks out the explosion so that they don't overlap each other so much. And that's better than erasing away the vectors of the explosion, because it allows me to shift the different shapes as I need them. So how can I do that quickly? Well, I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to lock everything. In fact, I'm going to turn off the explosion because I don't need that. And I'm going to use the pencil tool. And I'm simply going to roughly trace around the outlines of the big shapes. And sometimes you even want to make this a little bit bigger than the shape if you want a little bit of a border, like the white rim around a sticker, when combining different elements together. Now these might be images with text, like in a logo or logo type. So for all this complication, I might just shoot a little wide. And basically, I'm just going to outline her, keep it all as one shape. If I'm feeling lazy, like I am right now, just so I can kind of show you the point, I'll get around, and then with Creative Cloud, you don't need to hold down anything. Just as soon as you get to the end of your path, that circle will show up and will show you that you're closing the path. So now I have one closed path. I'm going to fill that with white. Right now it's going to fill it with black. I have to change that color while it's still selected. And I want to choose a color and choose white. All right. Now I want to move it in layers behind my image. And I want to turn on my explosion. And now, the reason you can always do kind of a simple cutout first, like I did, is now I can edit that cutout with the pencil tool just by recutting it. And I can do that section by section. So bringing this into the hair, it's like trimming a piece of paper with scissors. But you always have to start on the path and end on the path. Cut her out here. Now what's nice about doing this as a fill behind my line work, as one overall path behind, is I can change the color and I can mess with it in various ways. Where if I just filled the strokes as part of the vector of the woman, might not be as effective. Now, obviously, a tablet is very handy here. But if you're doing it with the mouse, you might use the pen tool instead to get exact edges. Did not do what I wanted it to do. Let me try again. And remember, you can set the sensitivity of your pencil tool to smooth out or to be more accurate to where you place it. And I have it at kind of my happy place, right in between the two. Now, just like you can trim down the shape, you can also add to it, like I'm adding the white into this air chord. And now I'm trimming it back. But you always have to end on the path. What is that doing it for? Let's see. What am I missing? Huh. There we go. So Illustrator is very much just kind of learn by doing. But every once in a while it will react in a way you don't quite understand. And what I find works best is just to kind of take it slow, section by section, and see what part it's not acting predictably on. When my kids were little, we did a lot of these craft sessions at local libraries. And libraries love to give little toddlers really complicated things to cut out. And so, of course, they can never do it. But as a parent, you always want them to try. So your first pass can be like a toddler trying to cut out your shapes. And then you go in as the adult and you clean it up after with the pencil tool. Or the pen tool or whatever you're most comfortable with. Now, the other thing I like about Illustrator is because everything that we do is its own path, whether we make it its own layer or not. It's very easy to work with, and we can always make duplicates. And so if I want to grow this white shape behind her, once I have a nice white shape, I can just make a duplicate and try it, try different variations. Okay, so let's try that. We're going to turn on the explosion behind. And looks pretty good. Maybe I want to make a duplicate of that, so I'm going to copy the white shape. Remember, just this shape I created. Say Edit, Copy. I'm going to put it onto a new layer. Lock the previous layer. And I'm going to paste in place. And now with that copy, with the large selection tool, I can grow it a little bit. And if I hold down Shift and Option, it will grow from the center. And you see how it will give a little bit of an offset drop shadow behind. So I've kind of given myself more white space. And that gives a little nice, nice space between the hair and the explosion. And can make for a better looking logo. Now, of course, there's still always trimming that needs to be done. So I'll isolate my individual ones, and then I'll do things to make sure everything's filled in that needs to be filled in. And I can also use the small selection tool to just merge anchors together and just simplify the white shape too. Or I can just decide to go in and simplify my white form behind. Remember, whenever you hold down Command, you will turn to, when you're using the pencil tool, you'll turn to the small selection tool, which is very handy. Okay. And I always like to give myself some options. So that's why I'll often duplicate paths and try them slightly different ways, so I can decide what I will like better.